You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm Kirk Mona, and joining me are Rachel Gimza and Victoria Thompson. We're all naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders, just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's so good to see you guys again. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. I'm doing great.
Doing fabulous.
Wonderful.
I'm enjoying the sun.
Well, I'm starting things off today, and my topic for today's episode is so huge that it is practically indecent.
You can't
literally
see this because this is a audio format, but I am squinting really hard at you, Victoria.
Okay.
I want to know. I'm trying to figure out where she's so
I feel
big that it's
suspicious.
indecent.
So big it's indecent.
Literally though, this one is pretty explicit, so parents take warning now.
Okay.
It's about animals, not humans, but
Okay.
you know. You might, if you want to protect any innocent ears, you can skip ahead about 10 to 12 minutes.
I'm squinting harder.
All right. Well, today I am talking about the remarkable sex life of the Serotine Bat.
Okay.
All
right.
I can't say I've heard of this.
Yeah,
What?
well, they're fairly common
weird.
bats. They're large, they're brown. They have a wide distribution across temperate and subtropical parts of Eurasia.
Okay.
However, before I talk about the specifics of Serotine bats and what makes them so remarkable, I want to talk about bat reproduction in general.
Okay.
So most bats give birth to only one pup at a time, and in some species, the pup can be up to 40% of the mother's weight.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, oh my god.
Luckily for mama bats.
I'm just imagining losing half my body weight to a baby. Like, oh my
It's a
goodness.
big baby.
Ooh.
Yeah. Unlike humans, though, and luckily for the female bats, the female's pelvis has a flexible ligament that can expand while giving birth to allow the baby to pass through the pelvis. You can do that if your main mode of locomotion is flying, but not if you're walking on two legs. So.
No.
Sorry, humans.
Wah, wah.
In many species, including serotine bats, the females gather in large maternity colonies, and they actually sometimes help take care of and even suckle each other's babies. They're literally taking a village to raise a babe.
That's so
That's so
nice.
sweet.
Yeah. These colonies also help with thermal regulation, since staying warm enough is actually a really big issue for bats in temperate areas. Flying is incredibly energy intensive.
Yeah.
And bats that live in colder climates also have to have a smaller body size in order to be able to fly. But then with a smaller body size and those big wings,
You lose a lot of heat.
quite rapidly.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's a really big constraint on their behavior and evolution. So temperature regulation and energy availability have also shaped some other weird quirks of bat reproduction. Females need a good amount of energy for gestation and lactation. So in some species, the adults will mate in the late summer or early fall, but the female hasn't yet ovulated. And she stores the sperm in her body over winter while she hibernates.
What?
That is wild.
Delayed implantation? No, not even that.
Delayed fertilization.
Whoa. That's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah, so then she'll ovulate. Once she has a few days of eating in the spring, she'll ovulate, fertilize the egg, and proceed with the pregnancy. In some other species, there is delayed implantation. So the egg is fertilized right away, divides a few times, becomes a zygote, and then
and just kind of hangs out for a while.
Yeah. So
That's
on to
amazing.
serotine bats.
Nuts.
In 2023, a team led by Nicholas Basel, I'm guessing how that's pronounced, at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, published a paper titled "Mating Without Intromission in a Bat." Well, for those of you who are not
Okay.
familiar with that term, intromission is basically
A break?
it's the male inserting the penis into the female's vagina.
Oh.
So, yeah, serotine bats.
Yeah, Rachel,
don't
you were
do that.
thinking intermission, right?
I thought I heard intermission, yeah.
That's what I thought I heard too. I was
Intromission.
like, man, this is a marathon session. Okay,
Oh.
but no.
Oh.
Different word.
Intromission.
Okay.
Important clarification. there. Okay.
Definitely. All right.
Thank you. I wrote the article, but I didn't actually speak it out loud. I mean, I wrote the text for this episode, so
Uh-huh.
yeah, I didn't think about that.
Huh.
Yeah, so the male serotine bat has an erect penis that is 7 times longer and wider than the female bat's vagina.
What? Why? Why?
I have
Why?
questions.
And what? I have so many. Most of them
Hold on.
being why, but also what pressures would make that be a thing?
Right. Did you say
Yes.
7 times longer and wider?
Yeah.
How does
So either
very
the
thick.
females have the tiniest vagina known to bat kind, or male bats have very large penises.
Well,
God, neither of those
males-
are sentences I thought I would hear someone say today. Okay.
Right? I was not
The
expecting to
penis
say
length-
that today.
The penis is as long as about 22% of the male's full head body length. So,
What?
like a fifth of their body length is their erect penis. That would be, just for comparison, that would be like a 6-foot man having a 15-inch penis.
Oh, jeez. But also 15 inches wide as well? Is that we talking? Like what?
Uh-huh.
No, it's not as wide as
No.
it is long,
Okay.
but it is quite wide.
Ah.
It has a
Well,
wide
just-
heart-shaped tip
Oh,
with a
okay,
few
sure.
short hairs on it, which the researchers believe the males use as sense organs to help find the target, so to speak.
Sure. Why not? Uh-huh.
Yep. The researchers were able to find a good area to do this study in the attic of a Dutch church.
That feels that feels
What you doing up there?
sacrilegious.
Oh, just studying bats in the belfry.
Yep, just seeing what the bats are up to, you know. Oh, sure. Why
Yeah.
not?
Just
You're gonna
They
do
set up an
that
actual-
anywhere.
Yeah.
You're gonna do it anywhere.
I am
Doing it in the
ass-
attic of a church.
I'm assuming they got permission from the church. Who knows?
Okay.
But they set up a grid of cameras that the bats could actually climb on, which gave them good
no.
angles for which to photograph and take videos of the mating.
So hold on.
These researchers are so dirty.
The bats are climbing onto the cameras. Do the cameras look like female bats?
No, it's just
Why are
like
they
something for them to hang from or roost on, you know.
Just a handy spot.
Oh, so this is okay.
There's like bars
I-
and then cameras set up
Mhm.
at certain places. Yeah.
I think my brain went like
They're
generally
mating with the camera.
well, there's that, but also I feel like in many mammal species, especially, or at least some, they don't have like external genitalia all the time. So I guess I just assumed this was a penis that was put away and then taken out when it was needed, kind of thing. Not a
I mean, it definitely grows larger when it's needed.
oh, okay. Now I understand. It starts small
Yes.
and it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know how
Wow.
the size of the unerect bat penis.
I'm not gonna make you look this
Okay.
up.
I just want to point out that you chose this topic, Victoria.
Okay.
Okay.
I
This is
sure
a
did.
topic of your own. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's go on.
Yep.
So what happens in serotine bat mating is this. The male climbs on the back of the female and bites the nape of her neck. And the female has a kind of a flap. Like, think of how bat wings look. So it's like similar to like a bat wing, but it's a flap that is her tail membrane, and it kind of covers the vulva.
Oh,
So
yeah,
he
the little tail flap there, yeah.
Yeah, he uses his erect penis to push aside the tail flap and search around for her vulva. And then they both just stay really still for a while. And then when they separate afterward, the researchers were able to see, oh my gosh, the researchers were able to see that the fur around the female bat's vulva was wet, indicating the likely presence of semen on the outside.
I hate this on so many levels.
And at no point was the penis inserted. Okay. So this is this bat is the only known mammal that does not practice intromission or, penetrative sex. In this way, it's more similar to many birds, where coitus involves what's called the cloacal kiss, where just like their parts touch.
Oh, yeah.
But nothing goes into anything else.
Yeah.
I've also heard that referred to as bumping donuts.
Yep.
What? Kirk. I didn't need to know that. I didn't need to have that image. Why? Bumping donuts?
I had a colleague who had a college professor who literally brought frosted donuts into class to demonstrate the cloacal kiss. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I mean, genius, great teaching method. Hate it so much.
It's memorable.
I'm glad I really don't eat that many frosted donuts anymore.
There is somebody, I guarantee, there is someone eating a donut listening to the podcast right now who's just like, well, God,
why would you ruin donuts? Oh, God. Keep going, Victoria.
All right.
Go on about the frosting, whatever you're saying.
Yes. We don't know, of course, if any other bats may also have sex this way, although in one species, the American little brown bat, that has a similar terminal swelling on its penis, another set of researchers did observe intromission, so not that species, apparently. A few unknowns here. They did not capture the females and test the fluid, so they don't know for sure that ejaculation occurred, though, of course, it seems logically likely.
Right.
And then the big question, which Rachel, you already asked, which is why?
Why?
Like,
what
I guess if they're like not
adaptive advantage.
Is the male like smaller than the female, so it has to be able to reach? Like, it's still
no.
Why? Oh, then why?
Well, so their hypothesis is that the female's tail sheath can theoretically block mating. So they think the penis might have evolved that way to more effectively push it aside. But, that's just one idea. You might also be wondering why the researchers set up sex spy cams on these bats in the first place.
They're perverts. I mean,
they had seen the penises of the males before, and they were like, "Why is it so big?" And then they wanted to find out.
I love science, but there are some questions that all questions are good questions, but there are some questions that I'm like, why did you ask that question? Now we need to find out the answer.
Yeah.
That's science. That's great.
I know. Love it.
They probably figured they could make money
sad.
off the Bat's OnlyFans account, too, to pay for the research.
Oh, gosh. Well, you say that, Kirk. In the future, according to an article about this paper that I read, Faisal and his colleagues are, quote, trying to develop a bat porn box, which will be like an aquarium with cameras everywhere, unquote.
Of course they are.
So that is where I'm going to leave the episode. I mean,
what a
my
place to
section.
leave us.
Wow.
My sources this week were this paper by Nicholas Fazal and colleagues called Mating Without Intermission in a Bat in Current Biology from November of 2023. There was an article in Live Science by Sasha Pear around it that had that beautiful quote that I just said. There was a little academic write-up by Sophie Bradley at the University of Nottingham called The Ecology of Bat Reproduction. Also a paper on the physical constraints of thermoregulation and flight drive, morphological evolution in bats by Juan Rubalcaba and others in our favorite journal, PNAS.
Of course, that's where it was.
It had to be.
What other
Where
journal
else?
would you put it in?
You wouldn't put
Well,
it
that
in
wasn't
anything else.
that wasn't the
Golly.
penis paper though. The penis paper was
okay.
not in penis.
Okay.
Sadly.
Good. Because that's the journal that article should be in. Absolutely.
It absolutely should.
It needs. If it hasn't been, then they need to put it over there. Like, why? Oh.
I also found a few helpful things on Wikipedia. We are
Oh my
gonna
gosh.
take a break, and when we come back, it'll be Kirk.
I'm not gonna lie,
Don't
I forgot
don't
that
wish-
this was the beginning of the episode. Kirk, I don't know how
Right,
I'm
we got
gonna
2 more
follow
segments.
that up. I don't know how I'm
well,
gonna follow this
We're
up.
gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
Feel like I went through a marathon.
Hey everyone, we are back. I'm still trying to recover from Victoria's topic there. Oh, so mine is a bit tamer, family friendly. Every once in a while, you come upon a story that just really challenges your perception of what the world looks like and how the world works. And that's why I love doing this show. It's why I hope all of our listeners enjoy listening to the show as well. And we often say it with me, nature laughs at
your little
boxes.
At our little
boxes.
boxes.
Yeah. It's like we try to put things into these boxes that to make sense of the world, and we try to divide things into categories that make sense. And nature is obviously really good at throwing a curveball and saying no.
No.
This
Not
little
today.
corner here is not going to fit your expectations, right? And this is what I want to talk about this week is one of those exact situations. So it also involves something that I think is really important to science, and that is local or indigenous knowledge. And one of the things people, keen-eared listeners may notice, we try to be careful on this show to acknowledge that when we talk about a quote-unquote new species, what we really mean is new to science. Often
New to
the species
Western
of
science,
bird
yeah.
or plant or fungus or whatever it is was already well known to the people who've been living with it, perhaps eating it or using it in some way that the species just had not yet been formally written up, described, and studied by scientists. And that's also what is going on here this week. And what I have for you, like I said, checks off both of those boxes. It doesn't fit in a nice box, and it's a plant. And it's a plant that was super well known, even regularly eaten by locals for centuries, if not millennia. But it also very clearly laughs at our understanding of how plants work. So
good.
I just had to share this.
Good.
The plant in question is a palm tree from Borneo. And now there are, as you might imagine, lots of species of palm trees in Borneo. And for that reason alone, you can see how scientists could overlook one of them. There are probably lots of species of palm trees in Borneo that have not yet been fully, studied and described by sort of Western science. And if you were to go there and look at this particular species, you could absolutely see how it could have been overlooked for a very long time. It frankly seems a bit unimpressive at first glance because it isn't very big. If you were to walk past one in the jungle, you might think that it was like just a seedling of a much larger palm tree. And often, I think researchers have a bias to like go for the big mature specimen of something rather than like, oh, this is not really fully formed yet. I'll come back and study it when it's big and done. This is the final adult form. It just looks like it's a little seedling. So for a long time, researchers were just probably walking right by these. But luckily, a local let these researchers know, like, hey, you should look into this palm right here. These are really cool. And they took a closer look, and oh boy, am I glad they did. So before I tell you what they found, I do need to keep you in suspense for a moment, because I want you to think about two related but super important adaptations that plants have. And those are the adaptations of flowers and fruit. So flowering plants, the angiosperms, split off from the gymnosperms, picture like pine trees essentially, about 300 million years ago. Now, dates vary, but we think of like the true flowering plants that we have today as having evolved somewhere around 120 million years ago. That's when sort of what we would recognize as flowering plants came about. And they rapidly became the dominant form of plant life on Earth, because having flowers has some big advantages. And the other, big change that came with that, and they go hand in hand, was the creation of fruit. Yeah. Yes. Since it's usually the ovary of the flower, although nature laughs at our little boxes. It's not always the ovary that creates the fruit. We've talked about that in the show, but usually it's the ovary of the flower that turns into what we would call a fruit. And there's, huge advantages to creating fruit versus just having these little tiny seeds inside of cones that have a tougher go of it.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So I teach about flowers and fruit a lot when I'm out hiking with kids. I literally was talking about this today with kids in the forest, and I'll often ask sort of a strange question. I'll say, by show of hands, how many of you have been tricked by a plant before? And invariably, no hands go up.
I get tricked all the time.
Yeah, and I tell the kids, no, all of your hands need to be in the air. Every single one of you has been tricked by a plant. And they're like, what? And I said, well, raise your hand if you've eaten a fruit before. And all the hands go up. And I'm like, right, you've been tricked by a plant. Because fruit is a plant's way of tricking and manipulating animals. Plants have a hard time moving their seeds far away from themselves. I mean, you can make them wind blown or something like that, but you really don't want your kids, essentially, to grow up right underneath you. You want them to move away from home. If you're a tree and you drop your seeds right at your base, then your kids are going to have to grow up in your shadow or your shade, and they're not going to do very well. So you want you want your kids far from you, but you also want your species to spread far and wide, to take over habitat and increase the survival chance of your species. And how fruit works is that plants essentially take those precious seeds, encase them in essentially sugar, right? And fruit is an irresistible sugary meal for animals, who then eat the fruit, walk far away, poop out the seeds into a nice little pile of fertilizer, and a new plant will grow. And we think we're just having a snack or maybe even a meal, but really the plant has just tricked us into becoming their seed dispersal agent.
Yes.
So,
although,
we are talking
Kirk,
about
I do have to clarify.
Yeah.
I do have to clarify that what we think of as fruit is not the only kind of fruit. So any structure that's carrying the seed of a flowering plant is a fruit. So like if you think about, you blow a dandelion and the little things float away.
Yep.
Those are the fruits.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So in this case, when I'm talking about fruit, I'm talking about juicy fruit, fruit with a sugary snack, fruit intending to be eaten. So more the culinary definition of fruit versus the scientific definition of fruit. That's a good distinction.
Of course.
Yeah. So we're talking about palm trees here, though, right? So
yeah, I'm like,
coconut.
You're telling us all about all of this fruit, and but palm trees they have some fruits, but like you're about to tell us about coconuts. So yeah.
Well, I think coconuts is what comes to mind, but that's the coconut palm. They actually have a different method, too. They make seeds that can float, so they can spread from island to island, which is very cool. They're also very tasty and have arguably, I would say, have spread further around the world because they're tasty than because they can float. So they're kind of doing a double whammy there. They've convinced humans to spread them around the world. This newly discovered palm tree newly discovered or described by science, I should say, does not make coconuts. It makes essentially more of the type of fruit you would think of. They're small, red, tasty, little juicy fruits have been gathered by the locals for a long time as a food source. And
Okay.
here's where things get weird. The fruit
Hmm.
grows underground.
What?
Yeah.
Why? But
You have to dig this fruit up
Oh my
to
gosh.
eat it. And this is incredibly rare in the plant world.
yeah. Why would you
certainly
have
have-
your fruit underneath the ground? Then you are
Yeah.
not getting it to the critters that'll disperse it.
Right.
Well, I
mean,
guess I have to
we
take this one off my list.
Oh, no, you were talking about this? Amazing. Yes. Swooped in again. Well, we certainly have vegetables, essentially like roots and tubers that grow underground. But
Peanuts.
fruit growing underground is bizarre. And peanuts are a great example of a fruit that grows underground.
Right.
But they're not like a classic like fruit like we would normally think of, like
Yeah.
a juicy red thing, right? They're
Right.
kind of their own thing. And so this is a palm tree, and these are these sweet, juicy fruits. Fruiting underground is called geocarpy. And I think a plant that practices a geocarpy is rare enough. That's pretty weird enough to be on the show here. But wait, there's more. This plant also practices what is called geoflory. So
The flowers are underneath the ground?
Are also underground,
What?
which is so
What
weird.
pollinates the flowers? Are there little they're little beetles and things like that pollinate the flowers? Is it water
flouters,
pollinated?
yeah.
The flouters.
Well, I don't know that we really know that because this is just new. This is being studied, and you can see why researchers missed this plant for so long because
Yeah.
when they were visiting Borneo, it's this small little tree, and the most interesting thing about it, the flowers and fruits are freaking underground. Where you can't
Right.
see them. So you can see why you would just walk right past them. It's nothing,
Yeah.
right? So we're still trying to learn more about this plant. It probably isn't quite as improbable to have underground flowers as it may first seem. So if this is insect pollinated, sure, many flowers are pollinated by flying insects, but there's plenty of insects underground as well.
right.
So when you start to think about it, you go, well, why not? Like, why wouldn't you have flowers underground to attract some of those subterranean insects?
But how do you
or
attract
other,
those insects to you underneath the ground?
well, maybe through smell, right? A
Yeah.
lot of insects are finding flowers based on the smell, not necessarily by the looks. So pretty interesting. And it's like when you stop to really think about it and all the little critters that live in the soil that potentially could be pollinators, it kind of surprises me that we haven't seen more plants that have flowers underground because there's lots of things that live underground that theoretically could pollinate a flower. So it's so strange. I do think the fruiting underground is even a little bit weirder though. Like you started to say, Rachel, you want animals to spread your seeds, and it's hard to attract an animal to pick up your fruit when it's underground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Well,
that
underground
being said,
living tunneling animals.
there are animals.
A mole?
There are tunneling animals. And I will say though, to be fair, it's not very far underground. I even got the impression that sometimes it's even like sitting on the ground or peeking through the surface because it's really growing like right at the surface. This isn't deep underground. Okay. So it's sort of
Okay.
like maybe even kind of in the duff layer, you know what I mean? Like a tropical
Right.
sort of setting. So we're not talking like, this isn't like 4 feet underground, right?
Okay. It's
there
not a
is
Rachel
also-
underground. Got it.
No. Humans certainly spread this plant around by gathering the fruit, and we are part of nature. But there's also some evidence that wild boars also seek out the fruit
Ah,
and could just
yeah.
sort of root
Okay.
around and find it. So that's okay. That makes sense. So I mean, all we really have so far is kind of a description of the species, and not a whole lot has been written about it, but it is pretty amazing. I just wanted to share with you that we have this plant that flowers and fruits completely underground. And it's just a reminder that we
That's
live
wild.
in a truly bizarre and amazing planet. This is one of the very few plants we know that do this. There's maybe a couple others that do kind of one or the other, like fruiting or flowering underground, but having both like that is just incredibly rare. My sources this week, one was an article by Emma Catron from the Natural History Museum website. And the other is the original scientific paper, Hiding in Plain Sight, the Underground Palm Pinanga subterranea. This was written by Benedict G. Kuhnhauser et al. In the open access journal, Plants, People, Planet.
Love that.
Yeah, pretty cool. Sorry to take another subject from you there, Victoria. I guess you snooze, you lose. Take it off the list.
It's a bitter pill to swallow, but go on with my life.
Happens to us all. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with Rachel.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. So we've had a pretty wide variety of topics this week, but
Sure
I want to take us back to the ground, and I want us to think a little bit. I want us to think small. All right?
Okay.
When we are looking around and we're with kids, what is a really common insect for kids to know and see?
Mosquito.
Caterpillars.
Okay. Both
I get the
are
impression neither
correct,
of those were the
but
right answer.
neither of them are the right answer. What's another insect? It's on the ground.
Beetles.
Yeah, a lot of beetles.
Beetles.
Ants.
Ants.
Yeah.
Now, when we think about ants, generally we think about like a typical 3-segmented body, right? Like a abdomen, a thorax, a head. They've got 6 legs, they've got antenna, and they have some mandibles. But we don't think of them as very large or like threatening in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
so sorry.
I've
not
met
the
some
ones
fire
where we
ants,
live now.
Rachel.
Yeah, fire ants are not pleasant, but
fire ants you're right. Fire ants are not pleasant.
Incidentally,
I've heard about
kids, whenever we find ants, kids are always like, they're fire ants. And it's like,
every time.
Children,
they're
we do not have those in the state we live in. And if we did, you would know.
Yep. Oh, God.
Yeah.
You would know. Yeah.
Are you going to talk about bullet ants, Rachel?
I'm not going to talk about bullet ants. I'm going to talk about a different ant. I'm going to talk about a species of ant. I'm actually going to withhold it, very similar to what Kirk just did to us, because I went through that whole segment, Kirk, wondering when you would tell us what the name of your plant was.
The very end.
When are we? I honestly thought you were gonna like exit and not tell us what the name of the plant, the palm was. Like,
it really,
did he
as far
forget
as I know,
that
it
he
only
didn't
has
tell
a
us?
scientific name. Yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about a genus of ants. It's Odontomachus. So this particular species of ants, they're pretty large ants. When I say they're pretty large, I mean they can get to be about 1/3 of an inch long. So like still not
good size,
huge, but like still a decent size for an ant.
Not teeny tiny.
Not small, but not probably the largest species, right?
No.
Now, these are pretty typical in Central and South America, as well as like Asia, Australia, and Africa. They've even been found in the southern states of America, especially like Florida and Alabama and that kind of space. They've been found in Texas as well.
Okay.
Oh. So there's 73 different species of this particular ant, and there's a couple of things that are really fascinating that I want to talk about, and part of it is their larva. Their larvae, are a group species. They do like nest all together. They're pretty typical for ants, right?
Okay.
Their larvae are pretty interesting in the fact that they actually they kind of look like they look like larvae. So think like a caterpillar, but these guys have like long spikes along them, as well as like some like they're able to like adhere to the walls inside of the nest.
Oh, what?
Okay.
So that way
Sounds
they
crazy.
don't go anywhere. And like the spikes
Okay.
aren't like, they're not like really big spikes. Think of like a
Like
spiky
Velcro?
caterpillar along the outside. And they're actually pretty active when it comes to being a larva. They actively eat and are being fed by the adult ants,
Okay.
which is also unusual. Like most when I say like they're active and they're being like fed, they're carnivores. They're not eating like
dear.
plants and things. They're mostly carnivores. Like they'll eat like nectar and ripe fruit and things like that, but they mostly are eating other insects and such. So that's what
Okay.
the larvae are trying to eat as well. Generally, they nest in like decaying wood and leaf litter, which can be really tough when, like, say you're gardening and you are clearing up that stuff, and you discover these ants. What really brought my attention to these particular ants their mandibles. Okay, so they're big ants.
Okay.
This genus are characterized by fairly large mandibles that are generally like cocked open, perpendicular to their head, kind of like a bear trap. Perpendicular.
Like a bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
Like up toward the sky?
No, like think sideways, like even to the ground, but perpendicular to their head. So like they're like open. Think like cat whiskers kind of thing. Don't know because I can't picture an earwig. Think of like cat whiskers or like, but instead of whiskers, they're
so like wait, hold on. It's like one jaw coming out of each side of their head almost?
Yeah. Which is pretty...
Okay.
Well, most ants and everything, they use mandibles. That as their mouth parts, right? But these guys, they are spring-closed mandibles. They are the second fastest moving predatory appendage in the animal kingdom.
Oh boy.
No.
And they have
hammer claw of the mantis shrimp.
No, actually, there is something faster than that. Actually,
Okay.
But these ants, their mandible is able to close at force and speed that is insane. The recorded peak speeds are anywhere from 78 to 143 miles per hour.
Wow.
On average,
that's pretty fast.
On average, the jaws can close within 130 microseconds. That's on average.
You were
Microseconds.
not kidding when you talked about a bear trap.
Microseconds. No, I was not. Microseconds. So which means like if you're going that fast and you're closing that quick, the force is 300 times the body weight of that ant. So
wow.
Jeez.
For context, the
please, yes.
trap
I was
jaw
hoping to
ant
do some context.
the trap jaw ant are pretty they're pretty serious, and that is how they capture their prey, right? But the force is a little too it truly is like one of the fastest things. Anything as like a small insect can trigger it. So their antenna is really long, and their antenna is what triggers that trap. So if their antenna touches something that they could be using for food,
Sure.
they can like just close in. If it's like a stick or something like that, and not food, it actually can cause the ant to like propel itself backwards because of the force, which makes them look like they're jumping, which is wild. Yeah. So yeah. So for context, like if that were to happen to a person, it can launch the ant up to like 3.3 inches into the air. So that's like someone my height. So that's a Rachel leaping 44 feet.
Because 44 feet, because your jaws
because my
clamp down on
jaw
something.
closed so fast.
Oh my gosh.
So your jaw closes so fast, it shoots you 44 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane. For like other context, like for the microseconds, that's 2,300 times faster than the blink of an eye. So this is insanely fast for anything to close, but allows them to be able to catch just about anything, right?
Yeah, I bet.
Right.
And they use those mandibles to like stun prey and to fight with other ants. They're really intense. I'm sure all of you are wondering at home, what happens if, people hit that, right? That would hurt.
Right.
It does. The short answer is it really hurts. It is equivalent to like a sting. So their sting is more painful than a honeybee sting. And so they are able to sting. So they'll grasp, which already kind of hurts. It pinches pretty bad. But they are also able to sting. And the sting and the venom in the sting feels a little more painful than a honeybee.
Okay.
But like their mandibles are pretty small, so like while it hurts, like and is fairly painful, it's not necessarily the most painful, but the fact that they are going that quickly is insane.
That adds to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they look wild too because you can see their mandibles just cocked and ready to go. There's been a lot of like research into the mechanics of it and how they are able to achieve such high speeds and accelerations.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering about.
Just trigger. So there was this really great paper done at Duke at the Patek Lab, mechanics of movement, trap jaw ants, and they had a lot of, I'm not going to lie, it went a little over my head when it came to just some of the speeds and the science. Just wild. So like the peak forces like exceed the body weight of the ants, but it's just wild. So I highly recommend that. That's what I had for you all today. I just wanted to talk about these wild ants that are extremely fast to be able to just less than a blink of an eye, like way tinier, just to grab food or to fight off enemies. I wouldn't want to mess with them ever.
Absolutely not.
So, yeah, nuts. My sources this week, were the Mississippi State University Extension Service. They had a article under Bug's Eye View, Trapjaw Ant, Volume 7, number 27. Wikipedia, Kids National Geographic had some really great stuff, as well as the Patek lab that I mentioned earlier. It's their biology lab. So, and I believe that's the end of the episode. So, what a wild ride we've been on this week. Hopefully we'll see you next week when we have some amazing topics ready for you, ready to go.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Be working on that in the meantime. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach us by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can check out our website, strangebynaturepodcast.com, and you can support the show and get ad-free episodes at patreon.com/strangebynature. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.